Hi, and welcome to this AQA A-Level Business revision video looking at 3.4.4 improving quality. In today's video, we're going to be covering the benefits and drawbacks of trying to achieve good quality, looking at things like total quality management, and of course, quality control and quality assurance. As a quick reminder, my teaching here is separate from my teaching and consultation roles at any and all schools, academies around the country. My name is Mr. Giles. Let's get down to business. So let's start off with what is quality and its benefits. Quality is very difficult to define in a business context because quality is individual to the customer. However, generally speaking, something that is considered a quality product or service will meet the expectations of the customers, and therein lies kind of the trap. So when you walk into Primark, for example, the level of quality you're looking for is probably far lower than if you walked into a Hugo Boss, for example. And that's to do with things like price and reputation. But it's kind of like a chicken and egg situation. However, we'll just go with that one. It meets the expectations of the customer. Now, quality can be achieved in many different ways, and we'll look at that in a moment. But let's have a look at the benefits to having good quality products. And remember, quality is it meets the needs of the customers in an exceptional way. So we've got a bit of a list here. First of all, it's going to increase sales. If you're selling products that meet those customer needs to the highest possible standard, then they will come back and be repeat customers. Think about things in your life that you consistently keep going back to buying. Okay, an example, a silly example, could be the deodorant that you use. Why is it you use that particular deodorant? Is it because it does exactly what you want it to do? Yes. Have you tried other ones that haven't? Maybe. Okay. So you just get repeat customer, and that's the beauty of good quality. Quality can be a unique selling point. So we can all think of products in our lives that we're like, yeah, I know it's a bit more expensive, but it's just so much better. All right. I'll give you an example from my world. I like to play guitar, and there are just brands out there that have really high quality guitars. And that gives them a unique selling point because they're just better than other brands out there. And they're the ones that we all covet and we all want to buy. So it creates that unique selling point. However, that doesn't mean they're always the most expensive. There are companies out there that are really high quality that aren't super expensive. Then we have pricing flexibility. So if you have a high quality item that people want to buy, that they're going to go back and buy every time, and that makes you unique, then that does make your prices more inelastic. If you don't know about inelasticity, there's a video on my channel, go and find it. But it makes you more inelastic. The higher the quality product, the more inelastic you'll be. So this summer, this is 2025, I just took my daughter on a Disney cruise. That was a very expensive 4-day trip. Probably I could have got 10 days somewhere else in the world. But the quality, the quality that was promised and delivered made it all the worthwhile. Then we've got cost reductions. If you're producing quality items, then we're probably minimizing waste and minimizing defects. Again, defects is covered in another video under measuring performance, and then we looked at wastage in our last video. So if we can create quality products and quality services, there's a minimum of wastage and minimum of costs. We're not wasting any time either. And then lastly, just the general reputation. If your business is consistently producing quality items, it will improve your reputation over time. And it's very easy to destroy that reputation. And it's very hard to build that reputation, which is why I use the word consistency. And if you're looking for an anecdotal story about that, go and read up about Volkswagen in 2018. They're known as a high quality car brand. You know, they're a German car manufacturer, meant to be some of the best cars on the planet for the value, and turns out they weren't, and they've ruined their reputation. So those are all the benefits of having quality items and producing a quality service or good. Let's have a look at how we actually get that quality service. So how is it that we actually achieve that quality? Well, I've got 3 strategies for you. First up, we have total quality management. And this one's a little bit of a tricky one to explain. TQM, as it's known, is a culture that can be applied to a business, and it requires everybody to be involved. And essentially what has to happen is that every worker becomes responsible for ensuring the quality of all parts of the business. And then we use things like quality circles and various other strategies to make sure that every single person, if they identify something that is impacting on the quality of the business, needs to highlight it and is responsible for fixing it. So if I'm say in a school and we were using TQM and I walk past a classroom and I see somebody teaching something inaccurate, it is my responsibility to walk in that room and, gracefully impact and change that. Now, it could be I walk past a maths classroom and I see something happening in maths, and I'm not a maths teacher, but it is my under TQM that would be my responsibility, and the teacher stood there teaching would humbly accept my help in ensuring the quality. Now, there are varying degrees of that. We do have that in schools, funny enough. Like we have an open door policy where you're allowed to go in and observe whoever you want and give feedback, and we gracefully accept it. So we do kind of have that situation going on, but it really does require that cultural impact. Everyone needs to be involved in it, otherwise it doesn't work. So that's TQM. Then within TQM or without TQM, we have quality control and quality assurance. Quality control is when we check the quality of the good or service at the end of the production. Now, where this becomes terrifying is if you imagine if you was getting a haircut and they used quality control. So somebody just cut your hair and at the end went, does it look okay? And it didn't. It's a bit of a problem, right? And that's no different to say if they were producing iPhones and they waited to the end of the production line, picked up the iPhone they'd made and it didn't work. They'd have to throw that away because it's been assembled at this point. It's hard to recycle. But if you're making, say, chocolate bars and you get to the end of the production line and the chocolate bar doesn't look quite right, or it's been, there was a misprint on the caramel, I don't know, it just didn't come out right, then it would be easy to throw that away because it didn't cost them a lot of money. And we don't really want those reaching the customers. So that's the point of quality control, is to stop defective products and or services reaching the customer. It's a bit trickier when it comes to a service though. Quality assurance, on the other hand, is when we check the quality of the good or service at various points in production. This is what actually happens when you get a haircut, because as the person's cutting your hair, they're probably checking they're doing it right as they go, and they might even ask someone to come and double check for them. And that could be the same when you're producing. So if we go back to my iPhone, at say every other step, they might take a pause, pull it off the production line, just give it a little look over and make sure it's going through the production line appropriately. This is very important if we go back to the previous video that I just did, looking at capital versus labor intensive. If you've got a capital intensive business that's using a lot of machines, you might want to slow that production line down a little bit by quality assuring at certain points. Because remember, a machine doesn't know it's doing something wrong. Now, with quality assurance, obviously that slows the production line down. That will slow the lead time down. That's not always ideal. However, it means you get the highest quality products possible. So maybe customers will be happy to wait for those higher quality products. But with quality control, it's a little bit quicker and you make sure defective products don't get out there, but it can be a bit wasteful because especially if you're using, say, like batch production, when it comes to, say, bread or t-shirts, they're made in batches of sizes. If you've got a whole batch that's wrong, you might have to throw those away, and that could be quite wasteful. So it's not the best way of reducing waste, but at least defective products aren't reaching the customers, so we should still benefit from a good reputation, etc. So TQM, quality assurance, and quality control. I'd like to add in a bit of a bonus one for you here, and we're going to look at the concept of Kaizen, which hopefully you've heard of. Sorry, Kaizen is a Japanese concept, and it means continuous improvement. It was made very famous in the 1980s at either Toyota or Nissan. I always forget which one it was, where essentially it was that kind of Japanese culture of everybody is responsible for improving the business, and if you had an idea how to improve the business, you had to come forward and give that. So it's not necessarily directly linked to quality, but it does kind of come along because the whole point of it is to reduce wastage and make the best possible goods or services. So it links loosely with quality there. So again, that Kaizen is that culture. So everybody has to be involved, that we always want to be getting continuously better. And even if you're one of the cleaners at the factory and you come up with an idea that might improve the manufacturing, the quality of the something, it is your responsibility to go and then report that. And you should be taken seriously by management despite your status in the organization. That's the concept of Kaizen there. And it's a nice way of improving quality because people who are quote unquote in the trenches, i.e. on the production line themselves, often have better ideas than the people who are sat in offices watch people do their jobs. So that's where that kind of concept came from. So lastly, then we have to look at the consequences of poor quality. And some of these are probably really obvious. First of all, it's going to lead to a decrease or a loss of productivity, because if you have to stop production because the quality is dipped, or you've used cheap raw materials and that maybe jams up a machine, or you basically do a load of production and it's no good, you have to throw it away, that doesn't technically count as output because you never got to sell it. So it's not ideal having that poor quality or having no quality assurance or quality control systems. It will just slow your productivity down. Then we might lead to a loss of profit. Now, I'm going to give you a funny anecdotal story because it happened to me last week. And you may have seen this, or it might have happened to you. I was in a restaurant last week with some friends, and one of my friends is just a bit of a Karen, unfortunately. And his dinner came out. It wasn't to his liking. Folks, it weren't terrible, but he was just not happy. So he then complained to the manager. And the manager went, "So sorry, we'll take that off the bill." So that's a whole meal that my friend has eaten for free. It wasn't a cheap restaurant. So that is a loss of profit because they're not making any money on that meal. So that could happen. So the quality needs to be there. Now, let's say, for example, you're getting people sending your products back to you. Okay, you're getting those refunds. Now, when people bring them back, they're out of the packaging, they might be used, whatever. You can't actually resell them. It's really tricky. I don't know if you've ever thought about that, what happens when you return a product. It's very unlikely they get resold. They often get kind of sold off in like returned bundles. Have a look at those on Amazon, moneymakers. So that's not ideal. So it's a loss of profit there. We really want to minimize that because it just slowly chips away. We then get a loss of customer satisfaction, obviously. So the restaurant we were at last week, my friend was like, "I'm never coming back here," blah, blah, blah. He made a real scene. So there's a loss of customer satisfaction. We all walked away a little bit dissatisfied, mostly because of my friend, unfortunately. But we're probably not going to go back there. So that's not ideal. That's dented in the reputation of that business. And then the last one, really obviously, is going to increase costs. If you're throwing products away because they're no good, increase costs. If you're having to remake products, so my friend then asked for his dinner to be remade, all right, increase costs. And if you're having to say pay wages for people to make products that you then don't sell, you're just paying wages for nothing at that point. So just increase costs. Now I'm assuming most of those are probably obvious, but they just make beautiful analysis and evaluation points. So that's improving quality. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. Thank you so much for spending the time with me today. You stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.